What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Ben Mahari here, representing Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. Much love to the entire LDBC and the entire basketball community. All right, basketball conversations will return this upcoming Friday at 9 p.m. Central Time. Is where we're going to discuss basketball-related topics, news, debates, and everything else in the world of basketball. And also Monday, we will have historical perspectives coming back this upcoming Monday at 9 a.m. Central Time. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of perspective of a certain player that basically died last month. So stay tuned for that, you guys. So I want to give a shout out to Two Raw for TV for this video too, because it was a really interesting video. And this is, as you can see from the picture right here, we're definitely going to discuss about this again because Shaq right now is being petty at this point, and it is becoming ridiculous. And let me fix something real quick. Okay, there we go. So here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. What I'm talking about is simply is this, okay? What is basically coming across here today, coming across is that again, Shaquille O'Neal is once again taking pot shots at Dwight Howard, and Shaq basically came out and said that, "Hey, I had the right to criticize, or I had the right to basically label my criticism on Dwight Howard, and I'm doubling it down, and I have no intentions on apologizing." All right, so I don't think this is coming across from jealousy because listen, you guys, what does Shaq have anything to be jealous about Dwight Howard for? But because Shaquille O'Neal is a four-time NBA champion, he's one of the 50 greatest players of all time. All right, multi-time, 15-time All-Star, two-time scoring champion. All right, and he's a three-time Finals MVP. Okay, and he was also one voted away from being unanimous MVP in 2000. All right, and I know that Shaq likes to label the fact that he's the last center in the history of the league in the last decade and a half to win the MVP award as a big man. So, but I'm going to get to that little angle in just a moment here. But the way that I'm looking at this whole feud is becoming really, really petty at this particular point, and it's making Shaq look really, really bad. Okay, now listen. I don't like Dwight Howard. Okay, I feel that Dwight Howard, in a sort of a way, underachieved in his career to a certain extent to what he was able to produce in Orlando. All right, but the bottom line is Dwight Howard achieved a lot in Orlando, regardless of what Shaq thinks, regardless of what I think, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Okay, the man is an eight-time All-Star. He led the league in blocks for two straight seasons. Okay, and during the 3 year to 4 year stretch, he was Defensive Player of the Year. All right, the guy was literally the face of the Orlando Magic franchise. All right, and led them to the NBA Finals. All right, even though he didn't win a championship. All right, up until this year. But the point is that the guy was literally the face of that team. And he was able to achieve a lot despite some of the limited skills that he had. Okay? Now listen, it's no denying the fact that Dwight Howard could have done things better, when he was in Orlando, or he could have had a better attitude of sort of things, or lacked the inner, competitive spirit to win a championship. That little anger, that drive, that losing is the worst thing possible. That's one of the big things that Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, had criticism on about Dwight Howard. Okay, and I think that had to do with Shaq and Kobe, basically, burying the hatchet and also, restructuring their relationship, up until obviously till Kobe's death. But back to what I'm saying here, okay? This is really beginning ridiculous right now because why is it that Shaq continuously keeps bashing at Dwight Howard? And I think I have a good feel about why this is a big issue here. As you can see, both of them are wearing the Superman shirt. Now remember, Dwight Howard wore the Superman shirt and cape during the 2008 Slam Dunk contest. All right, it was cute, it was fun, it was entertaining. But for Shaq, he pretty much took it the wrong way because because in his mind he was the first originator of the Superman character. All right, and Dwight Howard basically in his mind came in there and stole that moniker away from him. And I think from that day forward, Shaquille O'Neal has never chased and there's never stopped at any given opportunity to basically bash on Dwight Howard. Now, if I were Dwight Howard, all right, I would have basically walked up on Shaquille O'Neal and basically say, "Hey, look, you're gonna stop talking your garbage right now, otherwise I'm gonna beat the hell out of you." But that's not Dwight's character. Dwight's character is just basically a fun-loving kind of person, not that pettiness, bitterness type of personality that Shaquille O'Neal can sometimes carry. Okay, but when he keeps talking about about all this championship rings or all the things he's accomplished, yes, he's very accomplished. But let's get something clear here, okay? There was not one time in his career where he basically led the NBA in rebounding. All right. Sure, he led the NBA in scoring only 2 times in his career. All right. And both of them career wise shot 58% from the field. Their numbers basically are identical to their shooting percentages. Okay. Now look, Shaquille O'Neal throughout his career, all right, starting from 1992, okay? Listen, Shaquille O'Neal did not have any success in the playoffs. All right, if you're basically debating against Shaq and he throws the rings at your face, the way you counter is simple as this: what were you doing during the first half of your career when you were in Orlando? All right, you were swept out of the playoffs by the Pacers in 1994. Yes, you made the NBA Finals in '95, but what happened after that? You basically got embarrassed by Akeem Olajuwon, and you got swept 4 straight. Then the next year, you won 60 games, all right, and then it was overshadowed by the Bulls' dominant 72 win season, and you got swept in the Eastern Conference Finals, all right. And the bigger thing is that remember, Shaquille O'Neal had ego issues with Penny Hardaway. He had coaching issues with Brian Hill, all right. And remember this. Don't forget this: when Shaquille O'Neal came in late to an NBA to a game against the Chicago Bulls, it was on national television on NBC. Shaquille O'Neal came in late, all right, and now Brian Hill could have done a better job of basically of handling that situation a little bit better. But listen, he came to the game in late, and I think that had a lot to do with Shaquille O'Neal leaving Orlando that next year. All right, but look, what happened in '97 when you first came to Los Angeles? You lost 4 games to 1 against Karl Malone, John Stockton, and the Utah Jazz because what they exploited against Shaquille O'Neal is that Shaq was horrible in pick and roll defense. Anytime that John Stockton and Karl Malone executed their signature pick and roll, Shaq was not willing to come out and show. And anytime that they executed that play, Malone and Stockton would burn him every time. Why do you think that Phil Jackson came in a couple of seasons later to counter against that? All right. Now look. Then the next year in '98, you got swept in the Western Conference Finals again. This time against the Utah Jazz, 4 straight. So you got swept in '96 by the Bulls, and you got swept by the Jazz in '98. By that period of time, besides the fact that he got swept by the Spurs in '99, during his first years in the league when he was in the playoffs. He was 1-23 in the postseason, in basically in elimination games. All right. 1-23. All right. Think about this for a moment. If you're a Lakers fan before they were winning championships in the early 2000s, you were seeing the same constant pattern with Shaq's teams. Anytime they lost the first game or they basically lost a key game in a series, they just collapsed. And it's like, who are these guys? You know? And that's was just like, come on, Shaq. You could be more dominant than this, and you can play and you can lead your teams anywhere you want to go, and you didn't do that. All right. It wasn't until the Lakers pretty much said, "Hey, let's bring in Phil Jackson," and then Kobe emerged as one of the best guards of all time. All right. And even then, even when Kobe was emerging as one of the best premier players in the NBA, Shaq, what do we forget? Shaq would always come in fat and out of shape. Not the MVP year. Not the MVP year. All right. I'm talking about the year after they won their first championship. What happened after that? Kobe Bryant came in, worked his behind off, and got himself into the best condition ready to defend their championship. But Shaq came in fat and out of shape. And when I did my previous video about why Shaquille O'Neal underachieved, I took a lot of heat for that, including to the OG for not international boxing. When he basically talked about how can you say that when Shaquille O'Neal won 4 championships? I'll explain. All right. Listen, Shaquille O'Neal could have been the most dominant force in the NBA. All right. He could have been so many things. All right. Yes, he's in the Hall of Fame. Yes, he's a 4-time NBA champion. He could have won 6. He could have won 7 MVPs because if he would have committed himself to staying in shape long term and basically committed himself to being in the best premium shape to go into the seasons, he didn't have to spend the entire season getting into shape in time for the playoffs. All right. You were just fortunate that you were basically had the talents of Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade around you to help carry you along the way. All right. And more importantly to that, all right, when you were in Miami, you were not the best version of. When he was in Miami, he was not the best version of himself. He only averaged 20 points a game in that '06 season when Dwayne Wade was literally carrying that team to the championship. All right, think about this for a moment. In the 2 seasons, and actually in the 3.5 seasons when he was in Miami, all right, he was averaging 19.6 points per game, less than dominating. Okay, if we're really going to be honest with ourselves, all right, listen. Shaquille O'Neal is one of the best premier dominant centers in the NBA of his time. All right, but listen, think about the matchups that he was going against. All right, when he was coming up in the NBA, he had to go through a truckload of centers back in the day. Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, Akeem Olajuwon. All right, you also had to deal with Alonzo Mourning, who basically was in the same draft class as him, but he was an undersized center. But he used to give Shaq fits. All right. Then you had the second tier centers like the Rick Smiths, like the Sam Perkins, those kind of centers. And I used to remember Rick Smiths in his younger years. I'm not talking about his older years, but in his younger years, he used to give Shaq fits because when the Pacers used to do the pick and pop play, and when Rick Smith could shoot from mid range, Shaq hated to defend against that. All right, Shaq hated guarding against Rick Smiths a lot. All right. Now, when you fast forward to that 2000 NBA Finals, people talk about how Shaq was dominant, how dominant he was in that Finals, and he was. I'm not taking any away from him, but let's keep this in mind. All right, Rick Smiths up until that year, and then you rewind to 1997. All right, he had nerve damage in both feet and had to had surgery to repair the nerves in his feet. All right, Smith by that time, up until 97, all the way up towards his retirement, okay, he couldn't move his feet laterally. All right, he was basically a walking statue. He couldn't defend in the post even when he had good feet. But then you had to double to the fact that he had nerve damage in his feet and had surgery on both of them. All right, there's a reason why that 2000 NBA Finals were the last games of his career. He just could not continue to keep playing anymore because his feet were hurting him like crazy. All right. Then you fast forward to 2001, Dikembe Mutombo. All right, he was Defensive Player of the Year in that same year, right? But last time I remember, Dikembe Mutombo in that 2001 year when the Philadelphia 76ers made that run to the NBA Finals. All right, Dikembe by that time he was basically 34 years old. He was no longer the same, athletic, shot blocking, presence that he was when he was in Denver and when he was in Atlanta. All right. So by that period of time, Shaquille O'Neal was able to do whatever he wanted against, Dikembe Mutombo. And he went up against Todd McCullough in that same finals and in the next year. All right. He had favorable matchups in those NBA finals. Why do you think he won those 3 straight finals MVP awards? It's not hard to think about it when you look at the matchups of those scenarios. All right. Now remember, all right, Shaq had a lot of failures in his playoff career. All right. While Dwight Howard, on the other hand, he made it past the first round in 2008. All right. And then he made it to the NBA Finals in 2009. All right. He and his Magic helped upset LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. All right. And if it wasn't for some key moments in that NBA Finals where Courtney Lee could have made the alley oop pass in Game 2 that would have won the game and had a split in Los Angeles, and that if they would have just defended and not blown an 8-point lead with about 4 minutes to go in Game 4 of that series, it would have been a 2-2 tie, and I think the Magic would have had a chance to beat Kobe and those Lakers. I'm not saying they would. I said they would have had a chance. I just wanted to keep that label attached to my statement. All right. The point is this: Shaquille O'Neal is being really petty at this point, and it's becoming much more ridiculous. Listen, the there's more when it comes to basically critiquing somebody's game. That's one thing, but when you go going all the way to basically rip a guy because you basically have some sort of sustain against him, I mean, it just crosses the line. I mean, it's become ridiculous. And also, somebody pointed this out, which I totally agree with. All right, Shaq is no perfect person neither. All right, he made fun of a disabled person. All right, plus he basically tried to downgrade the death of Breonna Taylor and try to label to the fact that Breonna Taylor didn't have the same impact as George Floyd. Really, really. And then you compound that to the fact that continuously keeps on ripping on Dwight Howard, and it's becoming more and more childish with each and coming day. I'm telling you right now, you guys, Shaq is a great player and what he's been able to do. But listen, the fact that I have to sit here and basically defend Dwight Howard on this particular point is becoming much more ridiculous. And here's the thing: Dwight Howard is going to be a Hall of Famer. First ballot, in my view. Some people may say that he may be second ballot. That's your opinion. But the bottom line is, regardless of what you think and what I think, Dwight Howard is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer to what he was able to do on the defensive side of the ball. Now he basically underachieved after he left Orlando through his various stops around the league. All right. But the point is that the guy is perhaps one of the best defenders, one of the best post defenders, and best shot blockers in the history of the game. And you cannot tell me that the guy that accomplished, being first team All NBA for 5 straight years and won Defensive Player of the Year 3 straight years, and it could have been a fourth straight year if it wasn't for his back injuries. All right, you cannot tell me that this guy is not a Hall of Famer, and he is. And he's now enjoying the best achievement of his life when he basically won an NBA championship. All right. And I think that's something that Shaq detests more than anything else. Is that the fact that Dwight Howard won a championship, but never had to work up the ladder to get to that championship. That he basically coasted through, running on the coattails of LeBron James, and that's what I believe Shaq is thinking about. All right, because when he comes out and says like, "Oh, this championship don't even count," this championship doesn't mean anything. I hate to break it to you guys, even to Shaq, the championship is still valid regardless of what you think and regardless of what anyone else thinks at the end of the day. And for Shaq to continuously keep being petty about this is really getting ridiculous. You're a Hall of Famer, all right? You're one of the 50 greatest players of all time, and you're being a big fat child in this whole thing. While Dwight Howard is not even responding to all of this because he just doesn't even care at this point. It's becoming much more ridiculous. And if Shaq is going to continue to be petty like this, I promise you, he's going to have his reality check moment. And more importantly, what was that saying toughness and what was that saying, you know, bull briggerness when it came down to all those other fights you had in your career? Especially when Charles Barkley basically beat the crap out of you. And also when Charles Oakley stood up to you and you didn't do anything about it. All right. And even more importantly, Alvin Robertson didn't back down an inch, and you tried to petty slap Alvin Robertson, and then Alvin Robertson gave you a nice forearm to the face. All right, and don't forget, Alvin Robertson was the most intimidating and one of the most meanest guards in NBA history. Go look him up, and go look at his track record. All right, the guy did not back down from anybody. And what was that same toughness too when it came against Derek Coleman as well? Like, dude, stop. You are not tough. You're not. You're not that intimidating, and nobody is going to believe a word that you say a lot of the time. And I believe that somebody will give him his reality check, and he's going to get roasted so hard that he's going to walk away and cry like a baby because that's exactly what he is. But that's all I got to say about that, man. But tell me what y'all think.